Good evening, everyone. It's Mike DiMeo, and tonight I want to read for you some poems from this book called Gemstones of the Good Dhamma by Venerable Shravasti Dhammika, who is an Australian monk who has been a monk since the 1970s, and he's lived in Sri Lanka and Singapore mostly, and so that's why you have some Chinese writing here is because this book was published when he was still in Singapore. So we can open up the book now. If you have this book, you can follow along, and it's just a collection of poems from the Pali scriptures, from the Tipitaka. And of course, all of these poems have to do with the practice of the Buddhist teachings. Very beautiful verses, but entailing what we as Dhamma practitioners, at the same time as being beautiful poetical verses, entailing what we as Dhamma practitioners need to do to put the Buddhist teachings into practice. So let's open up the book. And the first poem is called Request, or Ayachana. So it says, "Homage to you, so nobly bred. Homage to you amongst men supreme. Peerless are you in all the world. May all worship be given to you. Homage to you, enlightened hero, who are completely free. I have fallen into great distress. Be my refuge and my shelter. In the world of gods and men, I see this Brahman true, this simple man. You I worship, all-seeing one, so free me, Sakya, from my doubts." Free me, Sakya Sakya. That refers to the clan that the Buddha was from. So, "O Brahma, out of compassion, teach me the lofty Dhamma so I may understand, and relying on nothing else, may live unclouded like the sky. Those who have understood the Dhamma and those who train themselves in it, O wise and truly gracious one, tell me how they live their lives." So now we're going on to the second poem called Dhamma, or in Pali, Dhammavaga. And it says, "I will teach you a Dhamma, not hearsay, but to be directly seen. Whoever discovers it and knows it and lives by it with mindfulness will transcend craving for the world. Prosperity in life is plain. Decline in life is also plain. One who loves the Dhamma prospers. One who hates the Dhamma declines. Thoroughly understanding the Dhamma and freed from longing through insight, the wise one, rid of all desire, is calm as a pool unstirred by wind. Those to whom the Dhamma is clear are not led into other doctrines. Perfectly enlightened with perfect knowledge, they walk evenly over the uneven. Not by water is one made pure, though many people may here bathe. But one in whom there is truth and Dhamma, he is pure, he is a Brahmin." So that last verse, not by water is one made pure not by water is one made pure, though many people may here bathe, but one in whom there is truth and Dhamma, he is pure, he is a Brahmin. So that's a verse, is essentially talking about the widespread belief in India at the time, um, and it's like a widespread belief in Hinduism today too. I think that washing, people back then in India believed that washing in a river could cleanse you of your bad or unskillful deeds. And I believe that that's still a thing in Hinduism today. Like you'll see people in India bathing in the Ganges River, and it's supposed to give them some like holy kind of thing. It's supposed to be like some holy symbolic thing for those people, like they're washing away their bad deeds. But what the Buddha taught is that you cannot do that. You cannot wash away your bad deeds. You have to change your own mind, and you have to change your own ways. You have to train your mind, and that is how you get rid of your bad or unskillful deeds. So, moving on. The path is called straight. Without fear is the destination. The carriage is called silent, and its wheels are right effort. Conscience is the rails, and mindfulness the upholstery. Dhamma is the river, and right view runs ahead of it. And whether it be a woman or whether it be a man, whoever travels by this carriage shall draw close to Nibbana, which is the goal of the Buddha's teachings. Nibbana, complete liberation from all suffering. Of all the medicines in the world, manifold and various, there is none like the medicine of Dhamma. Therefore, O monks, drink like this. Having drunk this Dhamma medicine, you will be ageless and beyond death. Having developed and seen the truth, you will be quenched, free from craving. So, the Defilements. This is the third poem. It's called The Defilements. It's on page 14. And so the Pali name for this poem is Kilesa Vaga. Kilesa means defilements. And so it says, bound by desire, tied to becoming, fettered tightly by false opinions, yoked to ignorance, whirled around. Thus beings wander through samsara, dying only to be born again. Samsara is essentially the worldly world. It's essentially, just wandering on. It's just, just being reborn and reborn over and over and over again, like never, never coming to an end of suffering, always being reborn, always wandering on, just endless suffering, endless rebirth, and with no end in sight, just simply wandering on. With no end in sight. That's samsara. And in plain English, like I said, that is the worldly world, where there's just suffering and people are always sad and suffering and grieving, and they don't know how to get out of it. So, going on, it says, neither gold nor minted coins can make the defilements disappear. Sense desires are enemies and killers, hostile darts, rigid bonds. Desire is agitating and deceiving, a source of mental pain, a net cast out by Mara to entangle and defile beings. So, Mara is a demon who is essentially the personification of kilesas or defilements. If you read the suttas and you study the discourses, you will see that in many suttas, the Buddha talks about Mara and his own encounters with Mara, or, the kilesas, the defilements. Mara, again, is a demon who is a personification of kilesas or defilements. So, were there a mountain all made of gold, doubled, that would not be enough to satisfy a single man. Know this and live accordingly. How ugly is the angry man. His sleep is without comfort. Despite his wealth, he is always poor. Filled with anger as he is, he wounds by acts of body and speech. One who kills gets a killer. One who conquers gets a conqueror. One who reviles gets reviled. Thus, as a result of his own actions, the spoiler will in turn be spoiled. There is no other single thing by which the human race is hindered, by which it wanders day and night, so much as by this delusion. Again, referring back to samsara, the reason that there's so much suffering in the world, as the Buddha taught, is because, humans are ignorant. They're deluded, and they, suffer so much, and humans constantly want, and wanting is never satisfied. The human mind is never satisfied, no matter how many things it gets, no matter how much of its wants are satisfied. It's never happy. And so this is what keeps, as this poem is saying here, as the Buddha taught, this is what is keeping people in samsara, constantly wandering on with no end in sight. This is what is happening to humans. The reason this is happening to humans, being stuck in samsara and consistently wandering on with no end in sight, rebirth after rebirth, life after life, this is all because of delusion. Humans not understanding the way their own mind works, and how the mind is never satisfied, no matter how many things it gets, no matter how many of its wants are quenched. It always just wants more and more and more and more. It's just endless wanting. So that entails endless suffering. How they cling and how they wrangle, yet claim to be recluses and Brahmins, quarreling and clinging to their opinions. They see only one side of things. Those who apply themselves day and night to the teachings of the Buddha will quench the burning fire of lust by the perception of the impure. By love they will quench the fire of hate, by wisdom the fire of delusion. Those supreme men extinguish delusion with wisdom that breaks through to truth. And so that is the end of that poem. And so the next poem on page 18, the fourth poem, is called Giving, or Dhanavaga. Dana means giving, in Pali. Dana is a gift that you give to someone, most typically a monk or a monastery, such as money or food or medicine, or fruit or anything. It's a gift that you give, dana, and it's given out of the goodness of your own heart. It's given out of generosity, and it's given out of faith in the Buddha's teachings. So here we go. Not with recluses or Brahmins, neither with the poor or needy, does the base man share his food or give any drink or sustenance. People say that selfish man is like a drought, a rainless sky. But one who shares his wealth with some, but does not gladly give to others, is only like a local shower. In such a way the wise describe him. So essentially, in this poem, the Buddha is describing. I do believe that these are the words of the Buddha himself. But what this poem is describing is different kinds of people based on how much they give. So the first verse, not with recluses or Brahmins, neither with the poor or needy does the base man share his food or give any drink or sustenance. People say that selfish man is like a drought, a rainless sky. So essentially, this verse right here is describing someone who never gives anything to anyone else, is very selfish and stingy, and just keeps and hoards everything for himself or herself. And nobody likes this person because they're just greedy and selfish. And then the second verse, one who shares his wealth with some but does not gladly give to others is only like a local shower. In such a way the wise describe him. So the second verse is describing someone who only gives sometimes. They don't they only give their wealth to certain kinds of people. They're not like generous. They give gifts, but they're not like giving gifts to all different kinds of people. They're just giving gifts to a select few people, like maybe people they like or they prefer. They're playing favoritism, essentially, playing favorites. They only give gifts to certain to certain kinds of people or a select few people. And so it says that the wise describe them as only like a local shower. So just like a little amount of rain in the sky, that comes down. Like when you have a big like thunderstorm or rainstorm, like all the rain comes down and everything gets wet, and all the trees and all the plants and all the grass get their fair share of water, and and are given enough water to drink, and everything gets wet, and all the plants and trees and grass, like I said, they get enough water to drink when there's enough rain coming out of the sky. But when there's like just a little shower, it's not even that long, maybe like 5 minutes, then not much rain comes down out of the sky, and the plants and the trees and the grass don't get enough water. And so that's kind of like what this verse is describing is somebody who just gives to a select few people. And someone is with this person, some people are always feeling left out because they're too selective with who they give gifts to. So on to the third verse. But one who rains down bountiful gifts, gladly giving here and there, out of compassion for all beings, and who always says, give, give. This type of person is like a giant cloud filled with rain, thundering and pouring down, refreshing water everywhere, drenching the highlands and lowlands too, generous without distinctions. So that right there is describing somebody who is generous, who is truly generous, who gives out of the goodness of their heart, who believes in giving, because they believe in kindness and generosity, and they don't just give to a few people like their friends, like, the second verse describes, someone who just gives to their friends. And certainly this person is not like the person described in the first verse, which is, just selfish and doesn't give anything to anyone. So, with his wealth collected justly, won through his own efforts, he shares both food and drink with beings who are in need. So this is describing someone who has earned their money virtuously. That's another thing in Buddhism that is often talked about. That if you read the suttas, the Buddha often talks about this too. In the suttas, is that people, if you want to earn wealth, like if you want to become wealthy or have money of any kind, not that you have to be wealthy, but if you want to have money of any kind, like you're working a job and you're acquiring possessions, then you should do it virtuously. You should not be working jobs that harm other living beings, like where you're killing animals or you're killing other humans, where you're not destroying the lives of other living beings. So you want to earn your wealth. If you're going to have a job and make money and buy things, you want to earn your wealth virtuously. The Buddha talks about that a lot. So just to repeat, that means working a job where you are not harming other living beings or destroying the lives of other living beings. So let us move on to the next page. This is the same poem, by the way, Dhanavaga. And it says, just as a pot filled with water, if overturned by anyone, pours out all its water and does not hold any back, even so, when you see those in need, whether low, middle, or high, then give like the overturned pot, holding nothing back. Generosity, kind words, doing a good turn for others, and treating all people alike. These bonds of sympathy are to the world what the linchpin is to the chariot wheel. Giving food, one gives strength. Giving clothes, one gives beauty. Giving lamps, one gives sight. Giving transport, one gives delight. Giving shelter, one gives all, but one who instructs in the Dhamma, the excellent teaching of the Buddha, such a person gives ambrosia. So this page is quite interesting because it's describing it's again encouraging us to give gifts to people and to be generous, and give for the sake of being kind and generous. The Buddha's teachings are about changing your ways, and not doing what most of the world is doing. So, a lot of people in the world are selfish and greedy. So we, as Dhamma practitioners, want to not be selfish and greedy. And so that's why we give, and we give out of kindness and generosity and wanting to help others. And then, interestingly enough, at the bottom of this page, this poem describes, the last two verses describe, the kind of merit that certain kinds of gifts give, the merit that certain kinds of gifts will result in. And then, more importantly, the very last verse describes the last two verses besides describing the kind of merit that each of these gifts will result in. It also describes, these last two verses of this poem describe how meritorious each of these individual gifts are. So as you can see in the last verse, it says, giving shelter one gives all, but one who instructs in the Dhamma, the excellent teaching of the Buddha, such a person gives ambrosia. So essentially, food and clothes and lamps and transportation, that's all great. But it says giving shelter is even better than all that stuff. And more importantly, someone who teaches the Dhamma, someone who teaches the Buddha's teachings to other people, is giving the greatest gift of all, the gift of Dhamma. So let us go on to the next poem. So this is poem number 5, page 22, Virtue, also known as Silavagga. Sila means virtue, or morality, more importantly, in Pali. Sila, when we talk about Sila in Buddhism, it mainly has to do with morality, and this is, because Dana is virtue too. Dana, gift giving, is virtue too. But Sila is, a step above Dana. Not that Dana is not important, but Sila is essentially taking the next step after Dana. There are times when the Buddha talked about Dana, Sila, Bhavana. So you start with Dana, which is gift giving, whether that's money, food, medicine, shelter, clothes, anything. Transportation, for monks, then you go on to Sila, which is, a stricter kind of virtue, morality, more importantly, meaning not harming other living beings, not taking the life of other living beings, and so on and so forth. And then Bhavana, which is meditation. Then, once you've got Dana and Sila down, you're ready for Bhavana or meditation so that you can develop your wisdom. So let us read Silavagga, virtue. Here in the world, one should train carefully to purify virtue, for virtue, when well cultivated, brings all success to hand. Not harming living beings, not speaking lies, taking nothing in all the world unasked, nor going to the wives of other men, and never drinking intoxicants. One who gives up these 5 harmful acts and does not engage in them is truly called a virtuous man. Virtue is the foundation, the forerunner, and origin of all that is good and beautiful. Therefore, one should purify virtue. Virtue is a mighty power. Virtue is a mighty weapon. Virtue is the supreme adornment. Virtue is a wonderful armor. So this page is very, very good. It essentially describes the 5 precepts, which are the base of Sila or morality in Buddhism. The bare minimum for people who are practicing Buddhists. And this is more typically associated with lay people living in the world, who have a job and maybe are married and have kids. But just in general, the bare minimum for practicing Buddhists is the 5 precepts. And this page describes the 5 precepts in very poetical verses. So, the 5 precepts, not harming living beings, that is referring to the first precept, which is do not destroy life, do not, kill other living beings, whether they're humans or animals, do not kill other living beings. Then not speaking lies, it says, that refers to the 4th precept, which is related to right speech, not telling lies, not saying untrue things, and not using your speech, not saying things that cause harm, or not saying things that cause harm to other living beings or conceal the truth in any way. So then it says, taking nothing in all the world unasked, which means, it refers, I should say, to the second precept, which is not stealing. The second precept is do not steal. Do not take what is not given to you. So then the next line, it says, nor going to the wives of other men. That refers to the third precept, which is do not engage in sexual misconduct. So that includes illicit sex, like having sex with someone who is not your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or husband, essentially having an extramarital affair, having an affair outside your relationship. Then also included in sexual misconduct is, rape or sexual assault, molestation, having sex with family members, I can't remember the word for that, but that's an issue in some cultures where, family members will have sex with each other. That's seen as illicit sex, or a violation of the third precept often. And then, also polygamy is oftentimes believed to be sexual misconduct too. That's like having multiple spouses. And the reason that people, are polygamists and have multiple spouses usually is so they can have sex with different men or women. So polygamy is oftentimes considered sexual misconduct as well. So then also just anything that is outside of the moral standards for your conduct in terms of sex or sexuality. Not sexual misconduct is just doing those things I mentioned, and then also the things that the things that the Buddha mentioned, and then other things just in general that are generally not accepted by society in terms of what is considered to be moral sexuality. So and then it says, and never drinking intoxicants. So that refers to the fifth precept, which is do not drink alcohol or use drugs or consume any intoxicating substances. And this precept, the fifth precept about not drinking or using drugs or taking intoxicating substances, this has in more modern times been the subject of different interpretations. Some people will say you can drink so long as you don't get drunk, and some people say that you can't drink at all. You can, I guess, interpret it however you want to interpret, but this is just like a common sense thing, like how, and I think the Buddha knew this too, like I think this is why the Buddha would generally discourage people from drinking at all, is how many of you can really like just drink a couple of beers, and like not drink more, like not go overboard? How many people can actually do that? that's not something that a whole lot of people can typically do. Is just drink a couple of beers or a couple of glasses of wine and just stop, like right after just a couple of glasses or a couple of bottles of beer. You know, people, oftentimes very routinely go overboard when they drink. And so the Buddha's not saying, I think I would personally say, just based on my knowledge of the suttas, I'm not saying I'm some, all knowledgeable person on exactly how the Buddha would interpret this precept, but based on my knowledge of the Buddha's teachings and based on my knowledge of the suttas, the Buddha would generally discourage people from drinking, period. That is what a lot of, what you see in regards to the fifth precept, in regards to the Buddha's own words in the suttas. He's oftentimes just outrightly discouraging people from drinking alcohol, period. And again, the reason is not to say like, drinking is, you're a bad person if you drink. He's not saying that per se. He's just saying it from a common sense point of view. Like, how many people in the world are serious about just drinking like a couple of glasses of wine or a couple of beers? Like, they're just, okay, I have a couple of beers and I'm done. Like, most people cannot stop, or a lot of people, at least in the world, cannot stop after a couple of glasses of wine or a couple of beers. Like, drinking is very much a social party thing. People drink to have fun, and let loose and get buzzed or intoxicated. That's why a lot of people drink. It's just the Buddha. When the Buddha was discouraging people, with the fifth precept, when the Buddha was discouraging people from drinking alcohol, he was definitely, I would say, based on my knowledge of the suttas, the Buddha was outrightly discouraging people from drinking alcohol, period. Like, telling people not to drink alcohol, period. But not in a dogmatic kind of way, like, oh, you're a bad person if you drink. You just kind of like in a common sense way, like, are you really being mindful of how much you're drinking? Like, can you really be mindful of how much you're drinking? Like, can you stop like drinking after 2 beers? Like, most people, or a lot of people, can't. So it's just from a common sense point of view, So, then it says, one who gives up these 5 harmful acts and does not engage in them is truly called a virtuous man. I mean, think about it. When you stop doing these things, when you stop killing other living beings, both humans and animals, and by the way, in terms of, not destroying life, the first precept, there are many different interpretations as to what that precept entails too. Some people say it entails vegetarianism, but, especially in Mahayana Buddhism, they believe in Mahayana Buddhism that entails, that the first precept entails vegetarianism. So if you go to a lot of Mahayana temples, they will only serve vegetarian food. So, based on my knowledge of the suttas, however, the Buddha did not force his followers to become vegetarian or only eat vegetarian food. If you look at the suttas, the Buddha never tells people that they have to be vegetarian to be a Buddhist, to follow his teachings. He just says that you cannot, and there's a sutta, I can't remember the Pali name off the top of my head of this sutta, but there is a sutta where the Buddha describes, when and when not to eat meat. And there are like several cases he gives in this sutta where you don't want to eat meat, such as, if the animal has been killed on your behalf, like you said, oh, go kill that cow or that sheep for me, like butcher that cow for me. I want that cow. Like when something like that happens, that's bad karma. So the Buddha was saying, that in this sutta that I'm referring to, that there are certain occasions where you do not want to eat meat, such as like, when the animal has been slaughtered on your behalf, like you asked for this animal to be slaughtered so you could eat it. But if you just like go to the grocery store and like buy chicken, or you're at a temple and you're eating lunch at the temple, and they serve meat at this temple, and that's what's offered there, especially if you're a monk. Like if you're a monk, you have to give up your attachment and eat whatever the lay eat whatever the lay community gives you. So sometimes they'll give you meat, and you kind of have to eat it, because you're supposed to be giving up your attachment when you're a monk. If you're a lay person at a temple, going to a Dhamma service at a temple, and it's like lunchtime and they're serving meat for lunch, then yeah, you can eat that. It's being offered to you. You didn't personally request the meat. You didn't personally request the animal to be killed so that you could eat it. So, the Buddha doesn't say that people have to be vegetarian to be a Buddhist. And that's a very common misinterpretation that people have. A lot of people, especially like Western lay Buddhists, again, not that you can't be a vegetarian if you believe that that's, doing, a service to the planet, or, you're helping all living beings out by being vegetarian. That's fine. You can be a vegetarian, but people don't have to be vegetarian to practice the Buddhist teachings, to follow the Buddhist teachings. And that's where people get it wrong. A lot of Western lay Buddhists and, Mahayana Buddhists, they will say that you have to be vegetarian in order to be a Buddhist. Like, you're not practicing ahimsa, non-harm, you're not practicing the first precept if you're not a vegetarian. And that's totally incorrect. If you read the suttas, you'll see that the Buddha clearly never says that people have to be vegetarian to be a Buddhist. Although I will say vegetarian food can, be very helpful if you're trying to lose weight. It could be helpful to eat more vegetables if you're trying to lose weight or like go on a diet. But it's not required to be a Buddhist. You don't have to eat vegetarian food to be a Buddhist. You can eat meat. Let us go on. Here we go. One is not low because of birth, nor does birth make one holy. Deeds alone make one low. Deeds alone make one holy. This is a great verse right here, because it talks about, essentially, I think I mentioned this earlier in this video, about how, back in ancient India, back during the Buddhist time, people in India back then, and still today in many regards, like you'll see them bathing in the Ganges River today, like Hindus, like bathing in the Ganges River, and, people in India did that back in the Buddhist time too. They were bathing in the river, and they believed that would, cleanse them and make them pure, and like, they would wash away their, bad deeds and stuff like that they did. And the Buddha told these people that you cannot wash your bad deeds away by simply bathing in a river. You have to train your mind, and you have to give up and abandon unskillful qualities in order to become pure. You cannot like wash your impurities away. That's superstitious. So, this verse is referring to the caste system. This is all very similar. This verse right here is referring to the caste system in Hinduism, which is still a major controversy in India today, where people are judged essentially based on their status, their socioeconomic status or background. Like if you have more money, if you're like wealthy and you come from a well-to-do family, a lot of people in India will believe that you're like, this all ties back into Hinduism. The caste system is a part of Hinduism. People in India, if you're wealthy, they'll believe that you're like, that you did good deeds in your previous lifetime. And so that's why in this life you're wealthy and you have good luck and everything. And you have a good life and lots of money and a good job and whatnot. And then so they believe that the more impoverished people in India who don't have, good jobs or a lot of money, those people, they think, deserve that life, like, a life of poverty and a life of having little money and not a good job. They think, a lot of people in India believe that those people who have less deserve to be in poverty because of, bad deeds they did in a previous lifetime. So, the Buddha here is saying that is incorrect. The Buddha rejected the caste system. He said that you are a good person, a virtuous person based on your actions, and you're a bad or unvirtuous person based on your actions. So if you do good things, you're a good person. If you do bad things, you're a bad person. So that is what the Buddha taught. So to one who is without evil, always striving for purity, a wrong the size of a hair tip seems as big as a rain cloud. So the Buddha says, excuse me. So what this poem is saying, and the Buddha refers to this a lot of, again, in the suttas, is how somebody who is virtuous and striving to be a good person and pure will never believe that doing the wrong thing is a good thing. They'll never justify doing the wrong thing, especially someone who's attained stream entry, which is the first stage of awakening in Buddhism. There are 4 stages of awakening, and this is the first stage, stream entry. And lay people can attain stream entry. It's a very realistic goal for lay people. And so the Buddha says in the suttas that a stream enterer, someone who has attained stream entry, the first stage of awakening, will never justify doing the wrong thing. Like, they'll never kill someone and say, well, I had to kill him. That was, they did something to me and I had to get back at them. They deserved death because they did the wrong thing. They'll never say that, and so the Buddha is referring to someone who is pure and virtuous. And, in the case of, the four stages of awakening, we're talking about a Sotapanna, or someone who's attained stream entry. That person will never believe that doing the wrong thing is good. They will always see doing the wrong thing as a big deal. That is what this verse is referring to. They will always see doing the wrong thing as a big deal. And so it says, train yourself in doing good that lasts and brings happiness. Cultivate generosity, the life of peace, and a mind of boundless love. The good luck of virtue never fades. Faith also brings great good. Wisdom is a man's most precious gem. Merit no thief can ever steal. In every virtue, all all accomplished, with wisdom full and mind composed, looking within and ever mindful, thus one crosses the raging flood. So, we're going to read the sixth poem now. On page 26, it's called Speech or Vachavagga. So, and if we talk about the Noble Eightfold Path, one of the aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path is Samavacha, which is right speech. Or is it Samavaka? I may be pronouncing it wrong. I'm still improving on my Pali, but that's probably the correct pronunciation is Samavaka. So Samavaka in the Noble Eightfold Path means right speech. And so this poem is called Vakavaga. So it says, every fool who is born has an axe within his mouth with which he cuts himself when he uses wrong speech. One should utter only words which do no harm to oneself and cause no harm for others. That is truly beautiful speech. So, we as humans, especially today in the age of social media, we do not practice right speech. A lot of us do not practice right speech. We, especially just in what we say about other people. I mean, we say really, a lot of us, say really bad things about other people. And, the Buddha is, the Buddha talked about this a lot, about using speech that is pleasant and, kind to other people, not insulting other people. If you're a teacher and you have a student or a disciple, you can be a little strict, I guess. But still, you don't want to be rude. There's a difference between strictness and rudeness. Being strict and just being plain overbearing and rude. And just in general, in our day-to-day interactions, you want to be nice to people. Which is something that all of us desire to see in other people. But a lot of us don't want to be kind ourselves. We consistently say, well, I want other people to be nice to me, but I'm not going to be nice to other people unless they're nice to me. And essentially, this goes back to our delusion as humans that, we should not change ourselves simply because other people are not changing themselves. The people that really change the world and really, do the right things are the people that change themselves. So even if other people are not being nice to you, you still want to be nice to everyone. This is not me saying that those people are doing the right thing for being mean to you. It's just that somebody has to be the change. Somebody has to, do the right thing. Otherwise, nobody's going to do the right thing. We want to, and again, this goes back to our desire as humans to see good in the world and to see good things happen in the world. Well, good things start internally. That's what the Buddha says. Skillful qualities come from the inside. We need to change ourselves if we want to see change in the world. So if we want to see kindness in the world, then we need to start being kind to others. If we want to see if we want to see compassion and empathy in the world, then we need to start showing compassion and empathy to other living beings. We cannot, say, oh, well, this person, is rude, so I'm going to be rude. That justifies my rudeness. We cannot say those things if we want to see change in the world. We cannot say those things. We really have to make the effort to be kind to all other beings in the world. Even if other people are rude to us, we need to make the effort to be kind to them. Again, this is not that they're doing the right thing by being rude. It's just us saying that we are not going to be a part of the problem. We're going to be a part of the solution. So, speak kind words, words rejoiced at and welcomed, words that bear ill will to none, always speak kindly to others. The worst of the two is he who, when abused, retaliates. I love that line. The worst of the two is he who, when abused, retaliates. And the reason I love that line is because, again, it goes back to the Buddha's teaching on blamelessness, on changing ourselves if we want to see change in the world. We cannot say, well, that person hit me, so let me go kill him, you know? We have to say, that person hit me, so I'm not going to do what this person is doing, which is, being violent. I'm going to abandon violence, and I'm going to develop loving kindness and empathy and compassion. So, again, this is all tying into the Buddha's teaching on blamelessness and being the change that we want to see in the world. If we want to see kindness and compassion and empathy in the world, then we need to start being kind and compassionate and empathetic ourselves. We need to use kind words and, right speech, and we need to speak things that are kind and helpful to other people. And we need to stop killing other living beings, and we need to stop justifying violence, and we need to start seeing how changing ourselves is changing the world, because we're, now doing what the rest of the world is not doing, which is not doing bad things, doing good things, not doing bad things. So, that is a good line. The worst of the two is he who, when abused, retaliates. Because again, as I've been saying these past few minutes, you want to forgive rather than be violent. Instead of responding to violence with more violence, we want to respond to violence with compassion and forgiveness and empathy. Otherwise, there's going to be none of that in the world, just practically. One who does not retaliate wins a battle hard to win. And that's the most important thing. That's a good line too, because a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to be kind and compassionate and empathetic towards others. Or I should say, a lot of people can observe how difficult that is. It's very easy to lose your temper when someone, slaps you in the face or says something rude to you. It's very easy to lose your temper. But it is a very difficult battle to win. It is a victory if you do not respond with anger or hatred or violence, and respond with kindness and compassion and forgiveness and empathy. It is a victory because you are, again, not continuing that cycle of violence or that cycle of anger and hatred. You're not continuing the problem. You're becoming a part of the solution. So, and then that in turn means that there's more good things happening in the world. There's more kindness in the world when you're kind. There's less violence in the world when you abandon violence. There's less hatred in the world when you abandon hatred. So the fool who thinks he has won a battle when he bullies with harsh speech, but knowing how to be forbearing alone makes one victorious. So this is a good line too. The fool thinks he has won a battle when he bullies with harsh speech. Like a lot of times, people will get angry at someone and they'll respond in a very egotistical way, like, "Oh, you know, so and so this, so and so that." Very egotistical way. You'll see this in arguments. People lose their temper and they'll respond in a very egotistical way, and they think that they've won. Like, if I can just say something really mean, I've won. And it's just their ego justifying, like, oh yeah, I said something really mean and rude to this person. I've won the battle. Excuse me. I've punched that person. I knocked them out. I've won the battle, we as humans, oftentimes view victories in the terms of destruction. Like, how much of another person's life have we destroyed? How much have we got? How much revenge have we gotten? How much have we gotten back at this person? And we see that as a victory. And what the Buddha what the Buddha says a lot, what the Buddha said a lot, and what this poem is saying too, is that is not the case. The Buddha said that victory comes from giving up these unskillful qualities and really being the change in the world that everyone wants to see. So that's what this poem is saying too. So again, a victory is not being a part of the problem. A victory is being a part of the solution, and when we start changing ourselves, we can start seeing all the things that we've wanted to see in the world, in ourselves, So when the recluse speaks much, it is only to speak about the goal. So, monks are advised not to speak about things that are unrelated to the Buddha's teachings. Monks have, a stricter kind of right speech than lay people, because, they're monks. They've given up the world to attain Nibbana. So they are generally advised to not speak about anything that is not related to the Buddha's teachings. For lay people, it's a little more open, simply because we have to do things. We have jobs, we have kids. Sometimes we have, families and responsibilities sometimes. So sometimes we have to speak about those responsibilities. And so, knowingly he teaches the Dhamma, knowingly he speaks much. If one addresses those who wish to learn without wavering, imparting understanding, opening up and not obscuring the teaching. Speaking without hesitation nor getting angry when asked a question, a monk like this is worthy to proclaim the teachings. If he does not speak up, others know him not. He is just a wise man mixed up with fools. But if he speaks about and teaches the deathless Nibbana, the deathless means Nibbana, the goal of the Buddha's teachings, others will know him. So let him light up the Dhamma, let him lift the sage's banner high. The Buddha speaks words that lead to the winning of security, the ending of sorrow, and the attaining of Nibbana. Truly, this is the speech supreme. So that was the poem on speech, also known as Vakavagga. And so there are plenty more poems in this book that I will be going over in future videos this week. But I just wanted to discuss that, that set of poems, the first 6 poems in this book. It's a great book. It's called Gemstones of the Good Dhamma by Venerable Shravasti Dhammika, who again is an Australian monk who has been a monk since the 70s. He's written over like 25 books. Not so much known in the West, since he's spent most of his life in Asia. He's mostly lived in Sri Lanka and Singapore, which is again why you see Chinese writing here, because he lived in Singapore for many years. But you know, he has written over 25 books, and this is one of them. And if you go to local temples or monasteries, or other like websites or libraries that sell books about Dhamma, books about the Buddhist teachings, you can probably find a copy of this book somewhere. Although it does say that there's only 3,000 copies in print, you can probably find a book, probably find a copy of this book somewhere. If you just go around to like temples or monasteries. So, thank you very much for joining me for this video. Like I said, I will be going over more of the poems in this book in future videos this week. But for tonight, I just wanted to go over the first 6. And those 6 again were request, ayachana. That's the Pali term for request, ayachana. Dhamma or Dhammavaga. Kilesavaga, the Defilements, which is number 3. The 4th poem, Giving or Dhanavaga. And 5, which is Virtue or Silavaga. And 6, which is Speech or Vakavad or Vakavaga. So, thank you very much for joining me for this video, and I will see you next time.